Welcome to the 41st episode of Tokyo Alumni Podcast. Today, our guest is a co-founder, CTO, and head of products at Timers Inc., a startup based in Tokyo. He was raised in Tokyo, Japan, where he graduated from St. Mary's in 2005. He then entered Waseda University's International Liberal Arts Department. While studying there, he taught himself computer science programming in his spare time, also working part-time as a software engineer for a mobile website firm. Upon graduating Waseda, he joined DeNA as a software engineer. In 2012, he left the company to co-found Timers Inc. Timers Inc. is a tech startup running Famm, a suite of business primarily targeted towards families as photo printing mobile apps, family photo studios, and career development schools for mothers. They have over 1.3 million customers and have received 1.4 billion Japanese yen, so approximately $13 million USD, and currently have 50 employees passionately providing solutions for families all around Japan. As a CTO and head of products, he oversees all technological investment strategies, including hiring and management of engineers, and also oversees the app business segment. Welcome to the podcast, Ahmad.
Hi. Great introduction. Well, I wrote that.
Yes, hopefully I didn't butcher that too much.
No, thanks for reading it out.
Today, we're going to talk a bit about your interesting background of being a liberal arts guy, yet very, very techie as a professional. We'll also talk a bit about going the Japanese college route. So far, I think most of our guests have gone the US route. So I'm interested to talk to you a bit about that, as well as Timers. You guys are in your 8th year now. And just talking about that whole process of the startup. And off air, we also talked a bit about your industry being so young, my industry being so old, and sort of, maybe perhaps sharing some ideas in regards to, what other industries can pick up from the tech sector, which is just killing it right now. I don't mean to deviate too much, but have you been following the stocks like with Tesla? And
Yeah. I mean, I've been investing in a few companies. I had my stocks. I had some Tesla stock back when I was like 200, maybe sold at 350, 400, and I thought I made a good amount of return. But look at it now. I'm like, damn.
I'm in the exact same boat as you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, look at these suckers. They think it's gonna go higher, and it just kept going. And so I guess that's a stock market for you. But yeah, hopefully talking to you a bit, about tech in general. It's the industry. It's only going to continue to grow, especially with Elon Musk is going to have chips in our brains probably by the time it's 2030. So we
that is right
on that a bit as well.
Also, the AIs, right? The race.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting future we have. But let's sort of rewind the clock all the way back to the 2000s. And the first thing I noticed when I was looking through sort of what you've accomplished is you're clearly a tech guy, but your background in university is in the liberal arts department, and you were self-teaching how to become a computer programmer. So my first question is, why did you not just change majors? And secondly, when you self-taught, what was the process like? Was this something really regimented that you were doing, 1 hour every day? Or is it something that sort of organically happened based on your personal interests?
Well, so originally I was into computers and technology from when I was like in elementary school. I knew a little bit of HTML. I was able to write up my own homepage. Home pages back then they're called. GeoCities was kind of the popular one. So it was always with me throughout my life, but I never thought I would make that a profession or anything, right? It was kind of like a hobby. But after, I joined Waseda, and why I joined Waseda is because I didn't have a strict reason. I just wanted to stay in Japan. I just like Japan as a society and as a country. And I wanted to keep on with my life in Japan and hopefully have a career here. And then, but after joining college, they only had international liberal arts majors for people like me who can speak English. because the traditional Japanese college entrance process is a really strict exam, which Japanese high schoolers usually prepare for like 1.5 to 2 years. And I didn't do that, obviously, because I was in St. Mary's International School. So yeah, my choice, I only have like a few choices, maybe Waseda, Sophia, Temple University, ICU. Yeah, that's about it, top of my head. So once I joined, I realized, it's very broad, right? Liberal arts. And I didn't really have like a strict pillar of which sector of academics I'm focusing on. And I was just going on with my life. I was playing with my friends. I had a very easy college life for the first 2 years. And then I started to think of, well, what am I going to do with all this free time? What am I going to do in my life? And then, it just popped into my head to go into a little more of computers because I love computers. So I just went to a bookstore, grabbed 2 books on programming as Java, object-oriented programming books. I didn't know anything about that, but I just grabbed it. I was like, okay, I'm going to work on this, see how I'm going to do in a month. I'm just going to focus on this for a month. If I don't like it, it's okay. If I do, I'll keep on. Miraculously, from the first day I opened that book, I did it for like maybe 4 or 5 hours a day. I would ditch, I would ditch hanging out with my friends for studying programming. I was like instantly hooked onto that. And then I, whipped through those 2 books in maybe 3 weeks, a little under a month. So if I can focus and, even forget to eat, forget to hang out with my friends, maybe this is something I can pursue as a career. So I started to go a little deeper in that. Yeah. And then got a few more books. And then, also I go on YouTube, and then there's MIT courses to go into a little more of the real academics of the computer science rather than just practical programming, because those are programming and computer science are kind of different fields, or engineering and computer science is a little different. So I I wanted to put myself in both of those realms. Yeah. And then, just started snowballing from there.
Wow. So it was just 2 books that made you fall in love. So then you self-study, and as you said, at a pretty crazy pace, especially at first, where you're studying 4 or 5 hours a day. Sort of rewinding it further back to what you mentioned with Waseda. So my understanding is some of these schools, if not most of them, when you enter, there's only specific departments you can join being an international school student. So if the option was there, you would say you were more of a tech, IT, CS person than a liberal arts humanities person.
That's a difficult question, because before I entered, if I put myself in my shoes back before I entered college, I think I would have thought of the computer science department as kind of too difficult for me, and maybe I wouldn't have even tried. I would like, no, I don't know math. I'm not that much of a computer guy yet, so I don't think I can enter. So I think I would have gave up before even I tried. So in a sense, being able to have the freedom of exploring freely of what the computer programming field is like, I think that freedom was better for me. So it turned out better, I would say, yeah. And,
at the time, we've very recently had a guest, so he'd be, I guess, 7 years your junior, Alex Modi, who also later on, he actually became, involved with learning how to write things like Java and stuff after college. But now it's a bit more of a friendly environment, right? There's just so many more resources online. There's even little I can't remember the exact words he used, but there's like focus schools or cram schools where, you can go and basically
boot camps?
Yes, camps. Yeah, boot camps. And during your time, though, there weren't that many, ways to absorb that information. So was your primary way of studying buying books at bookstores, or were you able to sort of discover sites, or were there actual people that you spoke?
Not much people, but so mine was around 2007, 2008. That time is when YouTube really started picking up. So YouTube had a lot more resources, and the online learning community is starting to flourish. So big sites like Khan Academy, that just started up, and there was, I think Coursera was already up, and places like Udemy, Udacity. I think Udacity is where I used. So those sites were just coming up. So the resources were there. It was starting to come up. Yeah, it wasn't as major as it is right now. And it's not, I don't think it was as popular, but it was still, you know, if you Google it, it was there. And I think I was able to Google the right words and reach the right site. Yeah, and books too. I always loved books, so books were always my thing anyways.
And you brought up a really interesting point about sort of the fear most people have towards going into, you know, especially computer sciences. You said you weren't such a math person, and, you know, you felt like there's a mental block. How did you overcome that mental block?
Well, the interesting thing is programming isn't really about math. That's something a lot of people misunderstand, and I misunderstood until I started it. It's more like literature, I would say. It's like literature and Lego combined. And literature, why I say literature is because about how you construct each line of commands, and that you have to really, and how you structure, you know, writing essays it's like engineering, right? You have to think of the structure first. You have to outline it. You have to decompose that one section into sentences. You know, so I think it's a very like, it's kind of like construction. It's like engineering. And in that sense, programming kind of shares the same use of your brain as that. And math only comes in, I would say, when you would start to use stats. Like machine learning uses a bunch of math. So I'm having a very difficult time catching up with the fundamentals of machine learning even now. But yeah, there's a lot of math there. And also game programming, when you deal with physics, there's lots of math involved there. But other than that, like if you want to make a website, if you want to make the next Facebook, you don't need any math, or hardly any math, I would say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So even within the field, you're saying there's quite a bit of deviation and level.
Yep.
And, you know, ultimately, I loved what you said earlier about it being sort of literature and Lego. It's just like putting together those pieces. Interesting. And when you go on to graduate in 2009, not the best time to graduate, right after the financial crisis in 2008.
True.
Graduate at the same time. That whole process, very different, I imagine, coming from a Japanese college. So when you were graduating Japanese college, at least from what I hear and what I read, the process starts really early. Is that correct?
That is correct. It starts about at junior year. By the end of junior year, I think a lot of people already have their offers set up. And then many people would even start interning at their workplace from senior year already. So they start, you know, a lot of Japanese students, they do part-time jobs during their college years, but then a lot of them would drop that and then move into their company and start interning there at an early stage. Well, I don't know if that's a lot of people, but a good chunk of people do it that way. Or they just slack off in college in the senior year because they already know they got a job offer. So
with you and DeNA then, at what point did you know that you were going to head over there after graduation?
Yeah, so I wasn't really, I didn't want to really go with that, you know, the flow of the Japanese job hunting process where everybody has to wear those suits. You have to wear the dark blue suits and go to all these like seminars and stuff. It's a very stressful process, and it's kind of like treating yourself like one of the herd, you know. And I didn't like that. It was just kind of like the rebel in me. I was like, I'm not going to go that way. And the company, I was working at a small company making mobile sites. I think it was like 30 people. And I was working as a part-timer, and then they offered me a job, just a normal program as a programmer. So I was like, okay, so I'm going to have some kind of job by the time I graduate. So I can take it a little easier. And then I just applied for a few places. Yeah, embarrassingly enough, DeNA was not my first choice. I didn't even know much about it. And I just kind of like randomly applied to go to their seminars first. You have to attend a seminar to kind of hear what they're about, and then you can apply. But then I was 30 minutes late to that seminar. And then I didn't think I'm going to be able to enter, but then they're like, oh, okay, go ahead, you can come in. So if that guy said no, maybe I wouldn't have been here now.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how kind of like, you know, I wasn't taking the process seriously. But then luckily they did give me a job. So and throughout the interview process, I showed them the stuff I was working on. I had my personal projects at these websites I was running and stuff. And, you know, during the interview, they just made me open up my laptop and show me the codes, and like, okay.
Yeah, I definitely feel your pain when it comes to the whole, job hunting process. Everyone wearing the same suit. So you didn't go to any of the fairs then? No Boston, the infamous or famous, depending on how you look at it, Boston Fair.
No, I didn't go there. I think I went to one Japanese one in Tokyo Big Sight. It's one of the big conference halls. Yeah, I went there. I think I left in like an hour. I was like, nah.
Yeah, those things are, it's a little crazy. And it's very interesting to see what's going on right now with COVID. I hear a lot of it's online. Hopefully
that's interesting too. I haven't thought of that, how the process is going right now.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So you're at DeNA, and there's a real pivotal moment, right, in your professional career where you, and if I'm not mistaken, 2 other people, so 3 founders in total, begin Timers. So when this happens, was this a gradual process? Was it, years in the making? Was it months in the making? What led towards that ultimate decision? And like many other people who, start their own businesses up, were there any trepidations, any worries on your behalf of sort of leaving this, DeNA safety net?
So even before I joined DeNA, one of the reasons why I wasn't taking the whole job hunting thing seriously is because I kind of knew I wasn't going to be working as a normal employee, as like a sarariman in Japanese. I knew that wasn't going to be my life, and maybe it would take me 3 years, maybe 5 years to quit the company. And then back then, I didn't have any aspirations of creating a big company or taking my startup to IPO or anything. I just thought maybe I'm going to be a freelancer, just do web development or something. I just wanted to live off my own. I wanted to make my own money, I would just say. Yeah. So I had that part of I had that vision in myself for, a very long time back when I was a student. And then, but by the second year in DeNA, I was like, maybe it's about time. I just had a little itch, right? Kind of thing. Maybe it's almost time. And then that's the moment I did meet these 2 business partners. They're working at a different Japanese company. And then we met through a mutual friend, and they came to me with this idea of, developing this mobile app. And then back then it was just a back and forth of casual conversation. I was just giving them technical advice. And then one day they came to me, they're like, yeah, so we're thinking of leaving our companies, but what do you think? Do you want to hop on this with us? And then at that moment, I gave myself a few days to think about it. And after a few days of thinking the decision making was very simple for me because I was 25 back then, and I thought I still have room to fail. So I thought I'll give myself 5 years. If things won't go well, I'll give myself 5 years, and then so 25. By the time I'm 30, if things are not going well, if we couldn't make our startup, if it fails, I would still be 30. I would have a good amount of experience creating my own company, managing, doing a lot more high-level engineering. So I thought, then I'm sure I can get some kind of job, even if my company goes under. So failure wasn't really it didn't really sound like failure to me, if I put it that way, if I frame it that way. So I was like, let's give it a shot. It did start to grow. So we're in our 8th year. Very luckily, I didn't have to quit at my 5th year. We just kept on rolling. Yeah. Yeah.
And you guys are now in the 8th year, over 50 employees. And we were talking out there, a bit how, from my impression, 8th year is a young company, but then you were kind of correcting me saying, well, the startup world is very fast paced, fast moving. So you guys are more sort of a mid-range in regards to sort of the cycle startup. I guess a few questions I would have sort of relevant to that would be, now that you guys are in the 8th year, how does the strategy change from, your first few years, where I assume it was, the first few years was just, do what you can to basically survive. And at this point, now that you guys are a bit more comfortable, what is the next move for Timers?
Yeah, great question. First few years, as I said, just hustling, right? Trying to get our products out. we didn't know what was right. We didn't know what sticks with customers. So we were throwing things at the wall, coding a lot of dirty code, very embarrassed to look at right now. But then, as customers start to stick, we tried a lot of things. We start to understand what sticks, what doesn't. So now we start to have our business model. But so this is very particular to us. We are a family-oriented business. Our main customers are families and parenting. But as you know, Japan is an aging country with a decreasing population, right? So we are facing headwinds in a very macro level. So in that kind of environment, we are aiming to take our company public. That's been our goal since we started our company, and hopefully we could achieve that goal in, I don't know how, I can't say how long, but but going public is not a goal, right? It's only it's the next starting point. As a company targeting families in an aging and decreasing population country, we have to think of our growth in a very different way, because we don't have the tailwind of the industry or of the general macroeconomic environment. So we have to think of increasing the value per customer. So providing a lot more broadness and solutions per family, right? So we start with photo printing, but now we are going to photo studios and schools for mothers. And we have to do a lot more of those things. We have to increase our catalog of businesses. So that's kind of one way to grow our business. Another way to grow our business is go to international, go overseas. And we have tested in that market a bit, and then we could see some upside, but we just don't have the resource yet. So we're gonna push for it, in the next few years, little by little. And if that opens up a whole new avenue. So so in that sense, we could stay as a small to medium business right now without doing all that. We can just keep on with our average revenue growing, maybe 5 to 10% per year, which is not bad. But if we're planning to go public, we have bigger dreams, so we can't rest with that kind of growth percentage. We have to go 20%, 30% per year.
And off air, you and I were talking a bit about how fast the IT, startup, venture capital, that type of industry. Obviously, I mean, we're talking a wide range, but they kind of all have the similar culture, right? Of very speedy, it's young.
Yeah.
I guess one thing I would want to ask, as from an expert like yourself who's actually sort of gone through, the motions as well as seen the industries change around you. What do you think sort of the mainstream industries, so industries that aren't traditionally related to venture capitalists, like education, that I'm part of, or just, big corporates, could adopt or learn from sort of the more venture capital startup culture?
That's a really interesting question. Top of my head, I think one of the biggest things the tech industry is good at is data. I think that's the word. So why they're growing, and I don't mean data like collecting customer data and violating privacy, like the whole scandal you see right now. Just in general, knowing your audiences. Data is about knowing your audiences, right? Not knowing your customer. And when you start to collect data, not like very personal data, but just what are people clicking on? How long are they staying on the site? When do they get off? So when you translate that to even offline, I don't know what is the average commute time for students, and maybe that can be utilized in some way to engage students more in school. And then maybe you can see a correlation of the focus level of the student to the average time it takes for a student, the average distance between the student's house and school. When you start to dig in data, you start to see all these connections between so many things. And that's when you really start to be able to not only grow a business, but be a lot more intimate with your customers and be a lot more intimate with, what kind of offering you want to provide and what kind of value you want to provide. And I don't think companies don't treat their data as valuable as they should, and they don't collect the right data. And I think that's the biggest part. Every industry can learn from this meteoric rise in the tech sector.
Interesting. And then I guess on the flip side, I think Facebook's average employee is 30, right? So if you're 33 or 32 like us, or I guess, sorry, I'm 34. I forgot my own age. 34, we're old, right? We're actually on the old side. So
we are.
Maybe I'm stereotyping a bit, but I feel like that also would have perhaps its shortcomings in in certain ways, right? When you have a lot of young people who perhaps lack experience in other places. So have you seen on the flip side any weaknesses, from the venture capital, just any sector, including yours with the startups, that are, because they're young, they were lacking in something?
Maybe a lot less now, but well, maybe a little bit now though. Throughout the 2010, 2000, I'd say maybe 2015. I think there's a lot of tech elitism. Maybe I should put it. That the tech industry is the future, and what anybody in the tech sector is doing is kind of like, that's like the messiah, right? That's what's going to save the world. That's what's going to make the world a better place. That's kind of that's a mantra you hear everywhere. We're making the world a better place with tech. And but the fact, as we can see right now, is that that's not true, right? Just all the privacy things. I didn't want to mention too much, but all the privacy problems, data collection, the sinister data collection, and antitrust, companies getting too large, big tech using too much of their power, leveraging too much of their power, and not being judged, not being, legally, there's the right amount of justice not being brought onto them for the unfair amount of power they have. We're seeing the darker side of tech now. I think a lot of people are starting to wake up. The people who had that tech elitism are saying, wait, maybe we're not the good guys. Maybe we're not the saviors. Maybe we're just like any other rising industry. Yeah, like 100 years ago, the steel industry was crazy. Well, I mean, maybe even now, too. Steel industry, oil industry, they were giants, right? Yeah. And of course, when there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of sinister things that start to come with, right? And then they have to be under the same level of scrutiny as any other industry. So I think that's kind of the shortcomings, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great point about data collection. And I suppose with the election coming up this November, I guess we'll see a true test in regards to sort of the role or the lack of the role, social media will play. And I'm sure people, people will probably write about it for years to come. But for now, I guess we just have to see what happens, huh?
Yeah. So I said 2015, but I think 2016 was a better milestone I should have pointed, because the 2016 election, that was kind of a big pivotal moment for people waking up to the sinister powers of tech, right? With the Russian involvement, or alleged Russian involvement.
That's interesting. And in 2017, you got the 30 under 30 from Forbes. And if you could explain maybe to the audience, what is the 30 for 30 by Forbes, and in what ways did it affect your career and your life after winning this award? Yeah.
Okay. So the 30 under 30 award is, so they nominate 30 people who are under 30 at that point from many industries in business or philanthropy or even artists, right? And they pick the people they say are aspiring or rising and are representing their industry, which I don't know if it was, but yeah. And then I was chosen in the consumer technology division, and I didn't even know how I was nominated. They just tapped my shoulder one day, and then we started to go through the interview process. And then I don't think I'm able to disclose that too much, but eventually, they did award me with it. And then, so the award itself is, it's just an award. So it's not like I get a trophy or anything. I was just acknowledged. So the value was more of the network I was able to create with people with very big visions, really optimistic minds, and people that are actually doing good in the world. And they're very young, well, same age as me. So they were young. Yeah. And it was really nice to be able to connect with those like-minded people who were genuinely trying to do something good in the world and are working their asses off every day for that. Yeah, so I think that was being in that connection. I still have a group of people, the Forbes group. We have one, and then we occasionally meet up and just catch up, talk about what's going on with ourselves and stuff. And it's a really nice. It's just pure friendship by now, and that friendship I wouldn't have been able to get without the Forbes Awards. So yeah, that I'm very grateful of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool thing to see, you know, other international school kids get. There was another St. Mary's student, actually not too far from your year. I think was it Yuta Kambe?
Yeah, that's right. 1 year older than me.
And I saw him get, is there a 40 for 40 or is it just 30 for 30?
No, he was in the 30 under 30 in the financial sector.
Okay, so it might have been a few years ago. And yeah, I saw his name too. And I was like, wow, it's like taking over. So
That's right.
It's definitely something maybe younger, people can aspire to, seeing so many of their senpai take home that, recognition.
Yeah. As I said, it's just an award, it's just recognition. So it's not like, and for me, not trying to be too humble, but I didn't think I've accomplished enough to be worthy of that award, especially looking at the people, the connections I've made. People are doing a lot greater things than what I've been doing at that point. So I was very humbled in that way. So yeah, I didn't want to be too cocky of just getting an award because I didn't think I deserved it. But still, it's nice to have that kind of recognition and to have something that younger people can at least aspire, and hopefully I can be of a role model somewhat.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, and I know you're being humble, which you always are, but it's a big deal. It is a big deal for anyone who's watching, and it's a great thing that other people can look up towards. And this brings us to the end of this interview, where I like to finish off with asking you, the guest, what is to come in the upcoming months and years. So if you want to just take the mic away, give us about 60 to 90 seconds about what is coming up in your life.
Okay, yeah. Well, right now I'm just focused on my company to grow it, to make it a good company, not only business number metrics wise, but also as a culture, right? I want to have the best people, and hopefully we can achieve our goal of taking our company public, and from there taking it even to a greater level, and then also branching our business to provide more solutions for more people, not only in Japan, but hopefully in other countries too. Yeah, and for me, I just love to explore a lot of things, not only technology, but philosophy, literature, anything. So yeah, I just hope the next time we talk, I would be a better person than I am right now, every sense possible, morally and intellectually. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of about it on my side.
Well, yeah, thanks for being a guest today. As you were saying at the end there, you are a big philosophizer. I don't know if that's a word. And yeah, maybe when we have you back on next year or something around that time, we can maybe focus just specifically on philosophy then.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
And once again, thank you for being on. And that was episode number 41.
Thanks so much for having me.